Wave 5 has cruised on in just in time for summer, and holy smokes, do these waves just keep getting better. But that doesn't mean there aren't any bad eggs in the mix. You know the drill. We're gonna rank each new track from worst to best and then add it to our DLC-wide tier list. Make sure you stick around till the end of the video because the amendment committee has reviewed your comments and will be officially updating some of the rankings from previous videos. That said, let's start things off with number 8. At the bottom of our list, we have Sunset Wilds from Super Circuit. And let me tell you, the Super Circuit tracks were winning for so long. Every single wave, there was a beautiful, unrecognizable remaster. And now we have Sunset Wilds. I'm sorry, but what the heck happened? This is the first Super Circuit track that seems to be more of a one-to-one remaster, and frankly, that's disappointing. It's all flat and boring, just like its original variant. Nothing was added to make it really pop. Sure, there are some dancing Shy Guys, that's cool, but the boring layout is over before you know it. I was left yawning after my first playthrough. Actually, you know what? Let me backtrack for a second. This is not a one-to-one remaster because the one thing that made this track awesome on Super Circuit was the fact that the sun would actually set as you played the race. By lap 3, it would be nighttime, but here, on the Switch, it stays golden hour throughout the entire track. The whole gimmick of the track was the fact that the sun would set. It is called Sunset Wilds for a reason. What did Nintendo do? There are some positive things to say though. For starters, I really do like the music. It kind of has this Western cowboy vibe to it. That's something that we haven't really gotten in many other tracks. And to be fair, if they hadn't set such a wild standard for reimagining Super Circuit tracks, I might be a little more receptive to this one. But I was definitely expecting more. And can you really blame me considering everything we've gotten from the other waves? Maybe I'm being harsh, but I'm sorry, Sunset Wilds is going into the F tier. At number 7, we have Athens Dash from Mario Kart Tour. Now look, I was not that impressed by this track either. I think the concept is cool, sure, and it does have some nice moments, like driving through the little Coliseum is neat, and the end of the track being around these pillars is a nice touch. But beyond that, I felt like the flow of this track was just a bit odd. No 2 consecutive turns ever really felt like they meshed together in a satisfying way, and the graphics are a bit underwhelming compared to what we've seen in some other city tracks. This is certainly a great map if you're really into ancient history because it's chock full of really neat ruins, but when I factor in the gameplay and how I felt about it on my first few playthroughs, I do feel like it just falls a little flat for me. And now look, it pains me to say this, it really does, because with every wave, the city tracks have gotten better and better, but I just feel like Athens is a bit of a regression from the norm, and so Athens Dash is going into the D tier. At number 6, we have Los Angeles Laps from Mario Kart Tour. LA Laps is an alright track. I feel like this one kinda blends in with a lot of the other more mid-city courses for me. It's not amazing, but it's definitely a worthwhile addition to the booster course pass. The layout is fine, each lap is very unique in both vibe and function, which is nice. Though there are a couple of awkward sharp turns that break the flow a tiny bit. I do appreciate what makes LA unique compared to the other cities though. Starting off on the beach is a nice touch, and gliding through Dodger Stadium is a really cool moment, which made me wish we had a new Mario Baseball. But then I realized that Nintendo would probably find a way to butcher that, so maybe it's fine just keeping it in the vault for a little while longer. One section I found a little odd though was this little industrial work zone. Maybe I just don't know enough about LA to know what that means, but I just feel like there's so much more to see in LA and they had us drive through this little work zone. I mean, come on, send us by the Hollywood sign or something, not a bunch of excavators and construction equipment. This track was all right for me though, and that's why I'm putting LA Laps into the C tier. At number 5, we have Moonview Highway from Mario Kart Wii. Moonview Highway is the track that I think everyone was the most surprised to see in the announcement. I mean, getting 2 Wii tracks in the same wave, that is unheard of. I didn't think it was possible. Nonetheless, this was a welcome surprise. I've always been a fan of Moonview Highway. Even as my friends complain about getting flattened by the cars and trucks, I happily continue on, often as a pancake myself, taking in the beautiful scenery and nighttime city vibes. Gazing off into the distance at the full moon is as beautiful as it's ever been, and so is getting blown to smithereens by the bomb cars, but I am delighted to have them back, as annoying as they can be. Now, I will say that I do have one complaint. I'm a little upset that we can't actually get flattened by the cars. I feel like part of what made Moonview Highway so dramatic on the Wii was the obnoxious animations that came with getting flattened by oncoming traffic. Here we just kind of bounce around like we got hit by any other course hazard, and for me, that takes a tiny bit of the charm away. Something else that's interesting about Moonview Highway and the Booster Course Pass is that because of the big emphasis on Mario Kart Tour cities, I thought tracks like Moonview Highway were kind of off the table, but here we are. Having a Nintendo original city is actually a really nice surprise, all things considered. While I would love to place this one higher, the loss of some of the chaos due to the new game's mechanics holds it back a little bit for me. That's why Moonview Highway is going straight into the B tier. At number 4, we have Daisy Cruiser from Double Dash. Daisy Cruiser has set sail once again, and the summer vibes are at an all-time high. To say that I am ecstatic that Double Dash is finally getting some love in this Booster Course Pass between Daisy Cruiser and PD Piranha coming out in the same wave would be an understatement. I could die happy. This track has always been one of the most unique offerings from the series. You literally drive through the entirety of a cruise ship, from the pool deck to the dining room with moving tables to even below deck into the engine room. The fact that an entire track is contained in a cruise ship is just so cool to me, and it always has been since it came out on Double Dash. This version stays true to the original while also expanding on it in some pretty cool ways. For instance, right out of the gate, we realized that unlike the original version of this track, you can actually split off to go left or right as opposed to only being able to go right. In the GameCube version, this left path was always blocked off, so it's kind of cool to be able to go through there now. I also love that we can actually drive through the pool this time and trick off the edge. Even back on Double Dash, it always felt like we should have been able to do that. Falling into the pool and having to respawn never made a whole lot of sense to me, even as a young kid. Also, the sliding tables actually have diners at them now, which kinda sucks for them. They're probably spilling shit all over the place. The below deck shortcut actually goes underwater this time, which I think is a welcome addition to bring this track up to modern standards. And on top of all of this, the visuals and the music are so bright and upbeat, spot on with my nostalgic memories of the course. My only concern is that based on how the dining room tables keep sliding back and forth, seems to indicate that this ship might be rocking a bit too much. Yeah, that's a little alarming, and I think the ship might be going under. I don't want to be an alarmist. I just don't want Daisy Cruiser to be like a Titanic situation. I don't think there are enough lackitudes to pull all of those people out of the ocean. Daisy Cruiser goes straight into the A tier. At number 3, we have Koopa Cape from Mario Kart Wii. I think everyone kinda knew Koopa Cape would be a part of the Booster Course Pass eventually, but knowing it was coming and not getting it for so long kind of built up an anticipation for it, so to finally have it here is quite exciting. This was actually in my top 10 for my Mario Kart Wii rankings. Make sure to check that video out if you haven't. And what can I say, other than it's absolutely beautiful here too. The music, which I always thought was one of the highlights of this track, is nicely redone, but still fairly true to its original feel. Riding down the Whitewater Rapids is as fun as ever, and the underwater tunnel is breathtaking in its new HD form. The main difference in this remaster that I can see is that the underwater tunnel is more of a half pipe now, left open to become a full-on underwater segment. I think this is a nice update, though I will admit that I kinda miss the old electric spinners that would shrink you on the Wii version. I just realized that for Moonview Highway, I complained about not being able to get flattened by oncoming traffic, and now for Koopa Cape, I'm complaining about not being able to get electrocuted. Yeah, I need therapy. Overall, I would call this a faithful remaster. They haven't added too many new bells and whistles, but that's okay, because Koopa Cape is, and always has been, one of Mario Kart's finer offerings. Koopa Cape goes straight into the A tier. If you made it this far into the video and you're not already subscribed, why not help a guy out? Come on, we're trying to hit 15 billion subscribers by the end of the week. That seems kind of big. Let's try 2,000 by the end of the week. At number 2, we have Vancouver Velocity from Mario Kart Tour. I'm just gonna say it flat out. This is my favorite city track so far. This track is like an adventure through Vancouver. Everything about it is just an absolute spectacle, from driving across the suspension bridge, to taking in the nighttime city lights, to hanging out with the dancing Shy Guys in the ice hockey arena. There's a lot to like here. One of my common complaints about city tracks has been that the layouts are a bit busy at times, and the changing laps can lead to a bit of a discombobulated flow throughout each race. But here, the flow feels smooth to me the whole way through. Now, I don't need to go too far in depth with this track for you to understand how I feel about it, because what I'm about to do will make that clear. Now, for those of you who have watched this entire series, You probably know that I haven't always been that kind to the Tour City tracks. I think I've made my feelings fairly clear on a regular basis. But here we are, and I'm about to do this. Here we go. For the first time on this tier list, I am putting a Mario Kart Tour City track, Vancouver Velocity, into the S tier. And coming in at number 1, we have Squeaky Clean Sprint, a brand new track. Straight up, this track rocks. I love it. In general, I love the idea of shrinking down and racing through real-world environments. It's a huge part of the charm of Ribbon Road, which has us racing through the toys and gifts of a child's bedroom. It's kinda like the 1990s hit film series Honey, I Shrunk the Kids came true, but manifested itself in the form of a Mario Kart track. This track is just such a quirky, fun concept, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I want to see from these brand new tracks. From driving through the sink, to going down the bathtub drain, to getting blown by a fan, everything here just made me smile, and that's how I knew it needed to be at the top of my list. I think a personal reason why I have this track so high and why I adore it so much is because when I was a kid, I used to play with Hot Wheels cars in the bathtub, and maybe some of you did too. But I would get so into it, and my imagination would run wild. And now, with this track, it feels like everything I would always imagine my cars doing, but in the form of a Mario Kart track. And it kind of feels like, in a way, it's brought my childhood dreams back to life. If that makes sense. Kind of weird, but I think it makes sense. And I think that's what Mario Kart's all about when we play it as adults. It's about feeling like a kid again. And this track just does that for me. So I am so confident in putting this track into the S tier. Interestingly, this is actually the second wave in a row where I have the brand new track at number 1 and in the S tier. Wave 4 we had Yoshi's Island, and now we have Squeaky Clean Sprint. So let's see if those rankings survive the amendment report. Thank you very much for joining us today for the official Amendment Committee report. As you can see, I am coming at you live from the new track, Squeaky Clean Sprint, so that we can clean up the mess that Game Guy has created with this tier list. Now, the committee would first like to thank all of you kind, patriotic, good Samaritans, because your comments helped us reach many important conclusions regarding today's report. That said, we have a few important exhibits to discuss today, starting off with Exhibit A, the city tracks. One of the most common comments we received last time was to take another look at our city rankings. It has been a trend that with each new wave, the bar has been raised a little higher for the city tracks, and with these new standards, we must update our city rankings accordingly. The most common complaints revolved around our placements of Paris Promenade and New York Minute being in the A tier. For Paris Promenade, the committee hereby declines to amend this placement. We feel that although this track may not have as complex of a layout as some of the later cities, it makes up for its deficiencies in charm. Now, although we are refusing to demote Paris Promenade, we will concede that New York Minute may have actually proven to be a little bit more lackluster than we initially thought. This isn't to say that Game Guy still doesn't like New York Minute, but when you compare it to some of the newer tracks that have been coming out, its deficiencies become ever more obvious. New York Minute is hereby demoted from A tier to B tier, effective immediately. The last topic for the city tracks is Tokyo Blur. Tokyo Blur was bad when it came out, and it looks even worse with every single wave. Now, there are many reasons why Tokyo Blur is a boring track. It's the wide highways, it's the boring vibes. There's a lot about the layout that could be better, but the committee found this comment from Skateboarding Turtle to be rather convincing. Skateboarding Turtle attributes the improved later tour tracks to the fact that you can actually drive through many of the landmarks and monuments that are present within the cities, whereas in Tokyo Blur, all of the notable monuments and landmarks are more visible in the distance and aren't part of the actual track layout. Given the existing boring layout of Tokyo Blur, combined with the fact that there was less love and care put into the track design because of the placement of the monuments, we hereby demote Tokyo Blur from C tier to F tier, effective immediately. Moving on to Exhibit B, Fireballs. Now you may be wondering, why is there an exhibit for a fireball and not just another track? Well, that's because in the previous video about Wave 4, Game Guy made a baseless claim about fireballs on Waluigi Stadium. He stated that the fireballs in Waluigi Stadium were broken and they didn't actually hurt you upon colliding with them. And he actually said that was part of the reason he had Waluigi Stadium in the C tier. However, we can now confirm, thanks to comments from the community and from our own extensive research, that Game Guy is an absolute moron. He only experienced this because the fireballs do not affect you if you are not actually driving at a high speed. This is to prevent stun locking the game. Game Guy also claimed that the fireballs from DS Mario Circuit did not exist in the original version. He was wrong. They did appear in the original version. The basic takeaway here is that literally every single word that Game Guy said about fireballs in the last video was completely and egregiously wrong. As Game Guy's chief counsel, I feel it is my responsibility to issue a formal apology on behalf of Game Guy. He did not intend to mislead anyone, and he did not intend to hurt anyone's feelings. That said, this bleeds right into our Exhibit C, Waluigi Stadium. Honestly, we aren't entirely sure what Game Guy was thinking when he made this call. Many of you in the community were quick to point this out. That feedback, combined with our additional time spent on the course since then, has led to the realization that this course does not belong in the C tier. Many of Game Guy's criticisms still stand, but our enjoyment of this track has seen a marked improvement since it first came out in Wave 4. And therefore, we hereby promote Waluigi Stadium from C tier to B tier, effective immediately. Moving on to Exhibit D, DS Mario Circuit. One comment that the committee received heavily influenced our decision to amend this ranking. Shy Guy Timmy commented that he feels that Mario Circuit for the DS is one of the greatest circuit tracks ever developed on this sphere-shaped ball known as Earth, if not the best. Among the many reasons why he thinks we should upgrade this track, he ends his comment by saying, if it wasn't enough, they even have Wiggler. Move this track up a tier for Wiggler. But the fact that Shy Guy Timmy left this comment on the Wave 4 video, and very soon after, Wiggler made his playable debut in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the amendment committee doesn't believe in much, but we do believe that this may have been a sign from above. Because of this and our own improved enjoyment of the track, we feel that it is only appropriate to upgrade Mario Circuit DS from D tier to C tier, effective immediately. Moving on to the final exhibit, Exhibit E, the ongoing Toad Circuit controversy. Toad Circuit activists are a very vocal minority who continue to make their voices heard in the comment sections of various Game Guy videos. They have been met with some pushback as others are campaigning to keep Toad Circuit in the F tier. Unfortunately, our research is still incomplete on this topic. We are unable to make a final determination at this time. We feel that we may actually need the entirety of the Booster Course Pass to have been released before we can see the bigger picture and understand how Toad Circuit truly fits into it. So we'd like to apologize for this long, drawn-out process. Toad Circuit will be addressed in more finality in the Wave 6 video, hopefully. We urge you to wait until then patiently to hear what the committee ends up deciding. There were other topics in the comment section of the last video that were filed with the amendment committee that are still being considered. We have been reading every single comment. We just don't have time to address it today. But as always, if you or a loved one sees something on this list that you feel is out of place, do not hesitate to file an official complaint with the amendment committee in the comments below. Every single comment will be read and your voice will be heard and is highly valued. We would like to thank you for your continued support and your commitment to helping us create a just and equitable Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass tier list. Thank you for your time. Some of you may remember that at the end of my Wave 4 video, I pointed out that Wave 4 was the only wave to not feature a bouncy mushroom. Well, with the release of Wave 5, I am pleased to report that Wave 4 remains the only wave without a bouncy mushroom. You may be asking yourself, where is the Wave 5 bouncy mushroom? Well, glad you asked. It's actually in Squeaky Clean Sprint. At the end of your second lap, if you glide from the second level up to the right of the finish line and you take that shortcut, you'll be greeted by a hidden bouncy mushroom that I'm sure they tried to hide from us. But oh boy, we found it. I wonder if there's gonna be bouncy mushrooms in Wave 6. Oh, shoot. There's only one more wave. That's kind of sad.